Hey riders, we've done really well with our braking. Now it's time to move on to what we call bike and body separation. Bike and body separation is isolating the movements of the bike from the movements of our body. Everyone see how my head is staying relatively still? My head and torso remain still while the bike can be moving around all over the place. The bike's movement is dictated by the ground that we're riding over, and we want to stay suspended over the bike by bending our arms and legs as required. We are going to first touch on what we call forward and back bike and body separation. Forward and back is used for climbing and descending hillsides or getting up and over obstacles. So when we are going up, we're going to think about allowing the bike to get closer to our chest, handlebars getting closer to our chest as our arms are bending as we go uphill or up onto an object. As we're going down an object or descending a hillside, we're going to extend our arms and let the bike get a little bit more in front of us. So this forward and back motion is what we use for climbing and descending. As we start practicing this, we're going to do it on flat ground here through the cones. We're going to practice moving forward towards the handlebars and then back and extending our arms. And we're just going to alternate forward and back as we go through the cones. I'll show you what that looks like before we practice. Let's do 2 times around. All right, coaches, let's briefly talk about why bike and body separation is so important. When we're riding around, the terrain may be rough at times and we're going over obstacles and things of that nature. If riders are riding stiff or not paying attention, they're going to get pushed around awkwardly by the terrain, pushed around out of balance, what might lead to an incident out on the trails. So we want to help the riders to understand that they should be riding with bent arms and legs in a decent ready position as they are encountering different elements of the terrain, allowing the bike to move around underneath them. Additionally, we often talk about how great the bike suspension is. This bike has front and rear suspension. It costs thousands of dollars, but it's only a few inches of travel. What I want to point out to riders, it's not about the bike, it's about how they ride it. And here, I can bend my arms and I have a foot of travel here, and I can do the same thing with my legs. And yes, my arms and legs get tired and I have to pay attention, but we're going to use both this bike suspension and our body suspension in order to ride really rough terrain. Additionally, let's also consider how many skills involve bike and body separation. Nearly all of them involve bike and body separation. So we do want to spend some time here as we start with forward and back, and then we'll move on to other types of bike and body separation as we continue. All right, coaches, now let's talk about how we would offer progressions when we are teaching the skill. First, let's do this on flat terrain first. I know it feels or may appear awkward that we're doing this on flat ground while we just talked about how it's used for climbing and descending, but what I really want to check for first is range of motion. Are riders in a good ready position and able to bend their arms and legs in a coordinated fashion while riding through the cones, getting forward and then getting back on the bike? Once we've checked for that, then we can take them to the next level. In some cases very quickly, but let's think about starting on flat ground first rather than immediately trying to take them on a descent where they may be picking up speed and being heavy on their hands. As we continue working on flat ground, we may ask the riders to change the frequency that they are switching from forward and back. There's going to be times in a pump track, for instance, where they're going to have to do this pretty rapidly. So if they've done it once or twice through the cones and they're showing good range of motion, that's excellent. But let's also have them change the frequency and see if they can do it even more quickly. Next, I would love to take the riders using some type of ramps that we've constructed or mounds of dirt or an actual pump track and help them to practice this forward and back motion repeatedly. A pump track is an amazing place where we can practice our forward and back bike and body separation. Our next progression may involve taking them to a small grassy hillside where they can start feeling how they should be getting back as they're going downhill, and then how they have to move forward towards the handlebars as they're going uphill. Another great demonstration and drill that we can do with riders is propping the bike up on 2 objects by its pedals, allowing the bike to move around freely between the 2 objects. The riders can stand on their pedals and really start to feel how the bike moves forward and back very freely while their body stays still and they remain balanced on their feet. All right, coaches, now let's talk about some common errors we see related to forward and back bike and body separation. The first is that the riders are often too tall, and when they start thinking about bike and body separation, they're only moving their hips forward, but they're not moving their shoulders. Conversely, we may say riders that are doing what we call push-ups on the bars. They're getting lower and then getting up, but not initially moving forward and back. So let's help them to understand that both their shoulders and their hips should be moving forward, and their shoulders and their hips are moving back. Legs and arms are bending appropriately for that to happen. Another common error we see is when riders are going over undulations or they're in a pump track, their timing is off and they're not getting forward and back at the appropriate moment as they're going over the terrain. The next two errors are ones that we may identify when riders are practicing their descending. So as they're descending, they're not moving the bike in front of them, and therefore they're ending up heavy on their hands as a result. And then conversely, the rider may be too far back with their butt over the back tire as they're descending, and then they're going to lose the ability to control the front of the bike as they continue down the descent.